I could take a view that the individual in question, Mr. Soros, is a old, rich, opinionated person sitting in New York who still thinks that his views should determine how the entire world works. Now, if I could only stop at old, rich, and opinionated, I would put it away. But it's old, rich, opinionated, and dangerous.
President Trump is a con man and the ultimate narcissist who wants the world to revolve around him.
The Soros family has been strangling the United States of America for over 30 years.
They need to finish George Soros. That man and his ideas and his foundations are responsible for the destruction of the West. And someone has to now, he has to pay for it.
In an August 27, 2025 Truth Social post, Trump demanded RICO charges against the Soroses.
A lot of the people that you would traditionally say are on the left.
They're already under investigation?
Already under investigation.
Well, Soros is a name certainly that I keep hearing. I don't know, but Soros is a name that I hear. I hear a lot of different names. I hear names of some pretty rich people that are radical left people. And we're going to look into Soros because I think it's a RICO case against him and other people.
For decades, George Soros, the shadowy billionaire puppet master, has been funneling his fortune into the heart of American chaos, starting his dark crusade in the 1980s with so-called philanthropy that eventually morphed into tearing down the nation's moral and legal fabric, the prime example of everything we were warned about by the founders.
And I want to echo the Secretary's comments on Scott Bessent, who's allowing us to map out these networks through their financial criminal activities, which has been going on for decades.
And at the Government Accountability Institute, my colleague and I, Peter Schweitzer and our team, we followed the money, and we followed it to the top of what we call the protest industrial complex, Riot Inc., and we found a network of NGOs. It's not just the Soros network, the Open Society network, it's other funding networks, the Arabella funding network, the Tides funding network, Neville Roy Singham and his network, Foreign Cash, and it's also big left-wing funders. Some of them are not citizens of this country. Mr. Hans-Jörg Wyss of Switzerland. They're pouring money into this entire ecosystem. And so I want to share 3 money facts with you about what we call Riot Inc. Number one, like any corporation, Riot Inc. has many divisions. It doesn't just have the Antifa boots on the ground division. It has PR divisions. It has marketing divisions. It has a very well-funded legal division to get these boots on the ground back on the streets as quickly as possible. But it does have those investors that I mentioned. Number two, we have identified dozens of radical organizations, not just the decentralized Antifa organizations, but dozens of radical organizations that have received more than $100 million from the Riot Inc. investors. These would be the lawyer groups. These would be the groups that advocate for calling good, honest Americans fascists, etc. And then 3, I think the most shocking thing is that we have found that more than $100 million in U.S. taxpayer funding has flowed into these funding networks, including at least $4 million to these very groups themselves, not just Antifa types, but there was an event in Atlanta called Stop Cop City. Over 60 rioters were charged with domestic terrorism. These groups received money for that from both the billionaire class as well as taxpayer money.
Whispers in D.C. suggest dusting off this act, the Communist Control Act from 1954, to slam the hammer down on their shadowy networks. With Trump's DOJ already sniffing around Soros's empire for RICO violations, the Communist Control Act could be weaponized to label his radical-funded groups as communist fronts, choking their cash flow and exposing their anti-American agenda. And it's never been more obvious than it is now that this is the last stand to save the nation from a creeping red tide. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
All right, hello and welcome to the Diamond Report Live. How are you guys tonight? It is 10:05 p.m. on October the 12th, 2025. Yes, it's so good to be back, and we will do another live stream tonight, and we'll see what's going on in the world. Before we get into the news, I would invite you guys to follow along on some of the other platforms, if you don't mind. I am the Diamond Report over on Twitter /X. and it's The Diamond, RPRT. And you should be able to find it pretty easily, and pretty active on Twitter, and then diamonddisc.substack.com. So the QR code in the upper left corner is for Substack. And if you scan that with your phone, that will take you directly to this page. You just drop your email address in here on Substack and click subscribe, and you can join the email list, which is totally free. It's also a mechanism to support the show, if you guys care to do that. And Subscribestar is the other platform to do that. We've got a whopping 14 total subscribers here that are helping me fund this show, 7 on Subscribestar and 7 on Substack. So thank you guys for subscribing and for paying a little bit each month to help me with the cost and defraying that cost of doing the show every single month. So the 2 YouTube channels that we're streaming live to tonight, as well as Rumble, Diamond Disc, which is the Diamond Report, also on YouTube. And note, my subscriber count is going backwards, but that is to be expected when we're talking about YouTube here. They have now cut significantly over 300 subscribers from my channel in the last few days since they have brought my channel back. So not really a surprise there, but yeah, the numbers continue to go down on the Diamond Disc channel. Although the other one here, the backup channel, is trending upwards, so thank you guys for subscribing to either one or both of those channels. Take It to the Lord in Prayer End Times Dates on YouTube, Diamond Disc on Rumble, Diamond Disc on the other channels that I use as well, BitChute and Brighteon. And make sure you're on the band group too, totally free. That is our social media platform for the group of like-minded individuals who follow this show. So thank you guys in advance for joining in all of the fun. My name is Doug Diamond. I'll be your host. And no, I am not AI. I promise you, not AI. Had a comment come up in chat here just a minute ago. Take it to the Lord that the creator of this channel may be artificial. I'm not sure yet, but this stuff is artificial to me, this person says. Can you explain the Diamond Report in the different authors? Well, this is the creator of the Diamond Report, and I am the host of the show, and there are no other different authors. At one time on the Diamond Disc channel, there were several other people that I was producing that were on this channel, on the Diamond Disc channel on YouTube. Those people are no longer on the channel because the channel got, I thought, deleted. It was essentially put to sleep for 5 years on YouTube. And that is this one that we're talking about here. And after an appeal process, YouTube resurrected the channel for me. And of course, they've been stripping off subscribers. But yeah, there were a number of different authors, if you want to call them. It was actually just clients of mine that were on this channel. They are no longer on this channel, so this is just the Diamond Report now on here. End Times Dates and the Diamond Report are me. So anyway, hello and welcome, and all that to say, let's get into the news. We've got quite a bit to look at tonight. Thought this one was pretty interesting just because it's going to affect our friends in the Northeast. A nor'easter to hit New Jersey and New York City today and Monday. So if you're up there, I guess you probably already know this. Let's see what it looks like on the old Venture Sky setup. It looks like quite a bit of precipitation headed your way. Here's New York right here. So yeah, according to Hal, a nasty coastal storm known as a nor'easter is organizing, already there, and strengthening off the southeast U.S. will begin deluging the New Jersey and New York City area later today, Sunday into Monday. Widespread and severe coastal flooding, upwards of 8 feet, is expected in places like Atlantic City, New Jersey. So, wow, if you're there, make sure that you are trying to stay as safe as possible. The storm is poised to deliver tropical storm force wind gusts, soaking rain, and dangerous seas up most of the East Coast into early this coming week. So anyway, this article on Hal Turner Radio Show will give you more information if you need it. It says water levels could rise above 8 feet in Atlantic City, highest level since Hurricane Sandy in 2012. So wow, enter major flood stage on Sunday afternoon. It's enough to trigger widespread flooding on roads and some neighborhoods. So if you're up there, just use caution, as they say. So yeah, this site's pretty good if you want to just get a overall generalized radar map. Venture Sky, pretty good site. and totally free. Just ventusky.com, VENTUSKY. And then the other Hal Turner story that I had pulled up here, HalTurnerRadioShow.com, 2025 looks a lot like 1928 before the Great Depression hit. That's not good information. Not good news. Wall Street in a panic as stocks crash. Of course, this is a headline of the day from 1929. Says the year is 2025, and if you're paying attention, the echoes of history are getting louder. The same patterns, the same mistakes, the same blind confidence that preceded the greatest economic disaster in modern history are all around us. Most people see rising stock markets and think prosperity. But the smart money seems to be saying something else entirely. They see 1929 all over again. So yeah, that is what we're kind of all expecting at this point. Don't know if it'll be not as bad or worse. And then there's quite a bit of background here about what was going on in 1928. The collapse won't just be financial, it will be civilizational, according to what Hal's writing here, and then talking about today. So today versus 1929 and what that might look like. The delusion is total and absolute, Hal says here. The smart money isn't just preparing for a correction, they're preparing for a complete reset of the global financial system. They understand that when this bubble finally bursts, it won't just take down over-leveraged speculators and weak companies. It will take down currencies and governments and the entire post-war economic order that has defined our world for the past 80 years. So yes, and that will throw us into the full-on Great Reset, if you ask me, where they will bring in that digital currency and the full implementation of the biblical beast system, as told about in the book of Revelation. I think that is exactly where we're headed, and we are very close in that process. And then talking about take it to the Lord in prayer, end times dates, this is the timeline that I have not deviated from at all. Looking at 1928, pretty interesting number that Hal had on his article there. Well, 2028, as I've been positing since the first video I made back in March of 2019, 2028 could possibly be when Jesus returns, Feast of Trumpets, September 2028. So working backwards from there puts us right into the final 3.5 years now in 2025, starting earlier this year. So I tend to think what Hal's saying here makes an awful lot of sense. And I think as we go through the headlines tonight, you'll see that if you weren't already convinced that we are in the end times, you probably will be by the end of the show, because there's a lot of crazy, messed up stuff going on in the world. All right, let's take a look at the next article I pulled up. Need to know.news is where this one is. Max Blumenthal, somebody we've mentioned on this show quite a bit, discusses Charlie Kirk, Israel's influence over the U.S. and potential U.S. wars. Journalist Max Blumenthal explains the nuance behind the letter from Charlie to Benjamin Netanyahu in May 2025, before Charlie had become resolute in dropping his support for Israel. Blumenthal said that Charlie did not understand his position as an Israeli subcontractor after taking money from Zionist donors. Blumenthal also provided details about the media blitz set to hit the United States to curry favor for Israel and its wars. I think we are definitely seeing that now. He also covered the proposed peace deal between Israel and the Palestinians in Gaza. He analyzed the impending war with Iran and predicted that U.S. troops will be involved. He said that any U.S. soldiers who will die in that war will have died for Israel. He revealed that even when Israel is appeased, it still attacks. He explained the strategy of Israel's occupation of swaths of Syria and the war front in Lebanon. Or as we say Lebanon in Tennessee, as the war front in Lebanon. Blumenthal discussed Trump's turnaround on Ukraine, which pleases Lindsey Graham. Trump's provocations in Venezuela are being carried out under the influence of Marco Rubio, with an eye toward expanding the American empire into Cuba and Nicaragua. And Trump's advisor Eldridge Colby is interested in weakening China. Trump, in a speech before 200 U.S. generals, called for using U.S. cities in high crime areas as, quote, training grounds for the U.S. military. The U.S. military is being pulled in many competing directions And then we've got an interview here with Max talking about a lot of this stuff embedded in this page on this article. So feel free to look at this one, and I think he makes some really good points there. And we'll get into the whole Israel situation and the hostages and all that stuff. We got some articles on that tonight that we want to make sure to take a look at in just a little bit, so stay tuned for that. This one I thought was interesting, and it's, I guess, I don't know, it's okay news that they caught this guy. However, I don't think anyone actually believes this one guy is responsible for all of the Palisades fires, but it almost looks like that's what they're trying to do, is pin it all on this guy. Gavin Newsom and LA Mayor Karen Bass react to arrest of Palisades fire suspect Jonathan Rinderknecht. I guess is how you say his name. Jonathan R., I'll just call him that. A former Los Angeles resident has been arrested in Florida and charged with starting one of the most devastating fires in the city history, a blaze that ripped through Pacific Palisades in January, killing a dozen residents and reducing multi-million-dollar homes to ash. He was charged with destruction of property by means of fire, a federal felony that carries a mandatory minimum of 5 years and up to 20 years behind bars, if convicted, of course. Many are upset over the minimal charge. According to the federal affidavit, the inferno traces back to an earlier blaze, the Lockman fire, that broke out just after midnight on New Year's Day, 2025, near Skull Rock Trailhead. Jonathan R. was an Uber driver who was reported to be agitated and angry when he picked up passengers on New Year's Eve. Cell phone data and surveillance footage place him at the scene as the initial fires are ignited. Critics have pointed out that there has been zero accountability for the authorities who contributed to the Inferno fire, like Gavin Newsom opposed proper dry forest management, and of course slashed state funding for wildfire and forest resilience by $101 million in the 2024 and 5 state budget. He's been accused of making a land grab as he allocated $101 million for low-income apartments in the Palisades. LA Mayor Karen Bass cut $17.6 million from the city's fire department budget for the 24 and 5 fiscal year and was seeking an additional $49 million cut in order to give more money to the homeless. Many fire engines and other essential equipment were in need of maintenance and were not available. No new fire stations have been built since the 70s, but the population in need has increased dramatically. Coming from a former Angelino myself, living there for about 4 years in the very, very late 80s, early 90s, yes, it has grown exponentially. I can't imagine what it would be like to live there now, but to try and pin it all on this one guy, even though he's likely guilty of doing something, who knows what, the fact is it was a group effort, as we all know. We looked at all this before with the whole Palisades fire, debacle that happened. So pretty interesting that they found themselves at least one patsy here, and they'll probably attempt to blame him for absolutely everything. But, there were multiple ignition places that started the fires as it spread out across the city. I think that's a foregone conclusion at this point. He couldn't have been in all those places at once. All right, next article on needtoknow.news. Musk says over $100 million in U.S. taxpayer funds were funneled into NGOs fueling violence. Seamus Bruner, Director of Research at the Government Accountability Institute, briefed the president and his cabinet on a complex network of dark money NGO and activist group networks fueling leftist chaos. We have found more than $100 million in U.S. taxpayer funding that has flowed into these funding networks. Elon Musk retweeted a video and wrote way more than $100 million of U.S. taxpayer money. He presented a chart showing the organizations and individuals that have funded $159 million towards creating discord and violence nationwide. The leftist sponsors include Arabella, Buffett, Ford, Rockefeller, Singham, Soros, Tides, and Foreign Influence, which we saw a lot of that in the initial video tonight. A lot of the funding, where it was coming from. Bruner recommended that the White House take the following action: intensify investigations into opaque funding networks, end taxpayer subsidies to groups tied to unlawful conduct, improve disclosure for fiscal sponsors and bail funds, review nonprofit status compliance, and strengthen enforcement against fraud and violence financing. So I got some further videos here embedded in the article, including a panel here at the White House earlier in the week. White House releases names funding Antifa, protests, and violence in America. We paid for our own protests with over $100 million laundered by Democrats. We found a network of NGOs. And those are the ones that we already mentioned. So, quite a bit here on this page if you're interested in the whole Soros and other funders that have to do with the, Riot Incorporated, essentially is what it is, funding the NGOs and fueling violence across the country. The Podesta Plan is something that we've talked about before on this broadcast, something they're trying to implement now. So we'll see. We'll see how far they are able to take it. I thought this one was pretty interesting and certainly worth mentioning to you guys. This will probably affect a lot of you. The IRS $600 reporting rule is gone. Here's what it means for you. The Levy King breaks down the big news for anyone using Venmo and PayPal, Cash App, or Apple Pay. The IRS's $600 reporting rule that required 1099-K filings, you may remember this, that was set to cause chaos in 2026, but has been canceled under a new law. Learn what this means for freelancers and small business owners, for gig workers and everyday Americans. Kiplinger wrote that for payments you receive for 2025 sent to you in early 2026, you should only receive a Form 1099-K. If you receive more than $20,000 in gross payments and conduct more than 200 transactions on a single platform within a year. And then technocracy.news, we have a couple of interesting headlines here. Al Gore's startup tracks fossil fuel emissions by satellite and AI. Like that's going to do much of anything, right? Al Gore is a technocrat and a former member of the Trilateral Commission who incessantly pushes climate change and the destruction of fossil fuels. His startup nonprofit applies AI, satellite images, and ground sensors to track methane polluters. Watch out, cows. There's no way to track CO2, so he figures methane is just as good. The fact is that methane has a life of 7 to 12 years when released as a gas into the atmosphere. Nevertheless, Gore is setting up this massive surveillance system to punish the evildoers, the polluters. Wow. So Al Gore is not done. You thought he went away, but nope. He's back for more. Technocrats come for food to destroy farms and ranches. Technocrats are turning the book of Genesis on its head. God gave us food to grow and eat freely. Technocrats are destroying food. God gave us work to do. Technocrats are destroying work with AI. God gave women to give birth. Technocrats are killing fertility and giving us artificial wombs. God gave us land to work. Technocrats are taking land away from us. What is wrong with this picture? At every turn, the devil is in the details, and technocrats are his minions. In short, technocracy is an anti-human doomsday machine. Yep, it is exactly true. And then this final article on technocracy.news, Elon Musk gambles on sexy AI companions on X AI. What is Musk thinking? He came out as dark Gothic MAGA in Trump's presidential campaigns in 2024. Before that, he had 3 children with a pagan witch named Grimes, who also identifies as a technocrat. He says he is pro-human and then does anti-human stuff. Pushing addictive bots to hundreds of millions of people makes him the king of drug pushers. So anyway, that's the third and final top story here on technocracy.news. All right, got 3 articles pulled up here from the Liberty Beacon. IDF chief of Staff declares victory for Israel in Gaza. IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General E.L. Zamir delivered a victory address on Sunday after his troops pulled back to ceasefire lines within Gaza and prepared to escort the released hostages back to Israel. So yeah, if you didn't know, that is where we are. That is supposedly what's going to happen tomorrow, Monday, Israeli time. They're going to release the hostages and send them back to Israel. Well, your guess is as good as mine. If they actually do that, I think that they probably will get the hostages back. But my guess is that's when the real fireworks will start. As soon as Israel gets those hostages back. Watch out. Anyway, that is a Liberty Beacon article. Then two more from this same site. Bolton, as in John Bolton, expected to be charged criminally as soon as next week. Yeah, there's several people. We saw Letitia James being indicted this past week, which was kind of a shocker. But that's good. And then Bolton possibly will be indicted this coming week. He's one of the people that many are expecting to see indicted. There were several, but Bolton's name has really been kind of at the top of the list for a while. John Bolton expected to be charged criminally as soon as next week. Bolton, President Trump's former national security advisor, is facing criminal charges. MSNBC investigative journalist Carol Leonig reported Friday afternoon while on the air, the acting U.S. attorney in Maryland is moving forward with the charges, citing two people familiar with the case. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. You know, they have two indictments started here, and Bolton is certainly at the top of the list as well. So Comey and Bolton, and as well as Letitia James, and I think Jack Smith and a few of the others are right there with them. So we'll see where it goes. How Israel is weaponizing faith in America. As its popularity in the U.S. declines, Israel is funding the most extensive influence campaign in the United States to strengthen support among evangelical churches, of course, which were previously regarded as the steadfast base for the Jewish state. Israel's foreign ministry has engaged an American company to manage the campaign, intending to allocate just over $4 million to digitally market pro-Israel information in the U.S., especially the Western U.S., directed at Christian churches and Christian colleges and Christian events. Documents submitted on September 18th under the FARA Act, the Foreign Agents Registration Act, indicate that the San Diego-based company Show Faith by Works, LLC, will carry out what the company describes as the largest Christian church geofencing campaign ever conducted on American soil. We talked about geofencing, I think it was last week, maybe the week before as well, with regard to the Charlie Kirk Memorial. There was a lot of information that came out about all of the geofenced, if you want to call it that, all of the tracked and geofenced phones that were in the area of the arena where the memorial service was held. I think it was 220,000 or more, 270,000. It was a bunch. So, and it's talking about geofencing here. Geofencing marketing involves creating virtual boundaries around specific physical locations to trigger targeted advertising when mobile users enter or leave those identified and defined areas. Based on the FARA document, Show Faith by Works, LLC, proposes to target churches or places of worship and track attendees and continue to target them after they leave the geofence zone with pro-Israel and anti-Palestinian ads and calls to action. The campaign will also be supported on the ground with mobile exhibits depicting the October 7th event. It's the new Holocaust, isn't it? Although it's doubtful that it will mention Israel's Hannibal Directive. Yes, probably not going to mention Gaza and everything that they've been doing there, is my guess. But yeah, the October 7th, 2023 event would be the new Holocaust. Look at us. We're so persecuted. This one I thought was kind of interesting. This is, I think, good news. Depending on, your perspective, I suppose. This person that they've decided to bring in for the Super Bowl halftime show in February, Bad Bunny, Latin superstar Bad Bunny. There's been a lot already written about him, and apparently Turning Point USA is going to start its own halftime show that will run in concurrent with the football halftime show. Turning Point USA, the conservative nonprofit organization, has announced plans to host its own alternative halftime show during this year's Super Bowl. So that's pretty wild. I'm wondering, though, if it's going to be a worship service or what. All-American Halftime Show is being promoted by Erica Kirk, and founder of the associated media platform Proclaim Street, while specific performers and sponsors or platform partners have yet to be announced. The event is already drawing considerable attention from supporters of right-leaning entertainment alternatives. So, probably be a lot of, maybe not a worship service, but a lot of pro-USA type of performers. I'm guessing some country music artists and things like that. Just a guess. Anyway, that was on the website called The Source. I thought this one was worth mentioning as well. DHS.gov. An actual notice here on Homeland Security across the top says, due to the lapse in federal funding, because we do have a government shutdown right now, this website will not be actively managed. How about that? ICE arrest illegal alien driving an 18-wheeler with New York commercial driver's license issued to, quote, no name. You can see it here. This is the guy's picture, but no name given is the actual name printed on the driver's license. And it's for driving big rigs, for semis. U.S. Department of Homeland Security announced today the arrest of an illegal alien. His name is Anmal, who was issued a commercial driver's license by the state of New York to, quote, no name given. So there you go. On September 23rd, the Oklahoma Highway Patrol encountered Anmal during a routine inspection in a truck scale on I-40. Record checks conducted by ICE revealed that he is an illegal alien from India. Here he is right here. ICE arrested him and placed him in removal proceedings. So they've gotten him off of the road. I think that's good news. So anyway, according to the DHS anyway. So yes, Letitia James' mortgage fraud is worse than anyone thinks. This is on Revolver.news. She built her entire career on one premise: to take down President Trump. That was the entire purpose of her campaign. She wasn't running to serve the people of New York. She was running to destroy one man. And once she won, she went straight to work doing just that. She concocted a sham case built purely on political vengeance, not justice. Letitia was going for the jugular, and for a while, she was the toast of the town. That's right. The media and the left hailed her as a hero for daring to go after Trump, no matter how baseless the case. She often said that these now are ironic words that she stated were, nobody is above the law. Yeah, well, she thought she was, I think. So, anyway, further information here about the old Tish James saga on Revolver.news. Thought that was pretty wild. So this one on Daily Signal, how Trump's non-conventional leadership led to Israel-Hamas ceasefire and hostage deal. Daily Signal, remaining living 20 hostages are set to be released and returned to Israel on Monday morning. So tomorrow, but that would be Israel time. I think Israel's about, I want to say 9 hours ahead of where I am, something like that. So it's going to be pretty early around here when it happens. The breakthrough is a testament of President Trump's non-conventional leadership style, according to J.D. Vance. I think the story of how this historic peace deal came into fruition is that you had Rubio and you had Jared Kushner. Yes, notice he's back in the picture again. You had Steve Witkoff, who were empowered by the president in very non-conventional ways to bring the Gulf Arab states and Israel to the table and really force them together to hammer out a peace deal. Yeah, according to what they're saying here. Israel and Hamas agreed to the terms of a ceasefire and hostage deal about 24 hours after Kushner, who helped to negotiate the Abraham Accords during the first Trump administration, yes, you probably remember, and Witkoff, special U.S. envoy to the Middle East, arrived in Egypt last week to work with mediators on the final detail of the agreement. So anyways, we'll see what happens. I would think, though, that as soon as they get those hostages back, we will see some fireworks. Maybe not the instant, but my guess is it'll be very soon. Because I don't think that Israel is done, do you? I don't think Israel is done at all. And we know about the Greater Israel Project. I don't think they have any intention of backing down, backing off, and relinquishing any of the parts of Gaza that they've taken. So we'll see what happens, but I don't think that there's any chance of those things happening, especially given the fact that I believe we are in the end times here, and they really, prophetically speaking, have a larger and larger footprint on the world stage. And this will help bring about even more things, prophetically speaking, I think, as far as after the hostages are freed. So we'll see where it goes. DW.com, Israel says, won't release prisoners until hostages freed. So more of that same story. Netanyahu's office says Israel will wait until after it receives the hostages held by Hamas before releasing any Palestinian prisoners. Says the Israeli government says that it will free around 2,000 Palestinian prisoners only after hostages have been returned to Israel. So you see how they have 2,000 Palestinians and Hamas has, I think it was 20 Israelis. Well, 20 that are still alive, supposedly. Under Trump's peace plan, the deadline for the exchange is Monday. Hamas says it won't attend a Gaza summit in Egypt on Monday. So anyways, yeah, the DW.com site is pretty good. They tend to have some pretty good information about what's going on over there as well. All right, headline USA, a couple articles from there. Luigi Mangione seeks dismissal of charges in assassination of United Healthcare CEO. Mangione was not read his rights before he was questioned by law enforcement officers, so isn't that convenient? Just a little detail they happened to forget. Lawyers for Mangione asked a New York federal judge Saturday to dismiss some criminal charges, including the only count for which he could face the death penalty from a federal indictment brought against him in the December assassination of United Healthcare's chief executive. In papers filed in Manhattan federal court, the lawyers said prosecutors should be prevented from using at trial his statements to law enforcement officers and his backpack where a gun and ammunition were found. And of course, he's on video shooting the guy. Maybe that doesn't matter. They said Mangione was not read his rights before he was questioned by law enforcement officers who arrested him after Brian Thompson was fatally shot as he arrived at a Manhattan hotel for an investor conference. Mangione, 27, has pleaded not guilty to state and federal charges in the fatal shooting of Brian Thompson on December 4th as he arrived at a Manhattan hotel for his company's annual investor conference. The killing set off a multi-state search after the suspected shooter slipped away from the scene and rode a bike to Central Park before taking a taxi to a bus depot that offers service to several nearby states. 5 days later, a tip from McDonald's about 233 miles away in Altoona, Pennsylvania, led to the arrest of Mangione. He's been held without bail ever since. So anyway, further details on this article. But yeah, just the fact that he wasn't read his rights, I think that's bad news. But I don't know. Depends on the judge that he's in front of, I suppose. But I would bet that they probably will lessen the charges on him, unfortunately. All right, and then Headline USA article number 2 we have here tonight. Pentagon to build a training facility for Qatari pilots in Idaho. But then it says this will not be a Qatari airbase. Let's hope not. U.S. military is moving forward with plans to build a dedicated facility in Idaho to train pilots from Qatar. Well, if I knew for a fact that the U.S. was moving away from all this support of Israel in favor of Qatar over there in the Middle East as a partner, that might be one thing. But I don't know for a fact that that's what's going on. Anyway, this is saying that they're going to build a dedicated facility in Idaho to train pilots from Qatar, an important U.S. ally in the Middle East, Defense Secretary Hegseth announced Friday. He made the announcement during a visit by Qatar's defense minister, said that the facility will be built at the Mountain Home Air Force Base, would host a contingent of Qatari F-15s and pilots to enhance our combined training, increase the lethality and interoperability. The arrangement is not unusual. No, they do it all the time. Pentagon officials noted that similar facilities have been set up for other allies for decades, and that the Idaho base already hosts a fighter squadron from Singapore. So yes, they just help as many other countries out as possible, I suppose. Isn't that nice of them? So anyway, there's further information on this article as well. Headline USA.com. All right, information liberation. Top headlines here. Jared Kushner, back in the headlines. Kushner praises Israelis for not replicating the barbarism of the enemy in the war on Gaza. Yes, it's Israel who has been the wonderful side of this whole situation here, according to Kushner. Trump envoy Jared Kushner on Saturday in Tel Aviv praised the Israelis for not replicating the barbarism of the enemy in their war on Gaza. Has he seen what Gaza looks like? It's completely leveled. Probably hundreds of thousands of innocent people killed. And less than a couple thousand Israelis, I think, total, right? But not comparing one to the other, but still, when you look at the fact that it was a stand down on October 2023, that stand down is what ended up in the deaths of so many Israelis in the area, because they were told to shoot anything that moves. And in fact, it was friendly fire from the IDF that killed many of those Israelis who died that day. But I guess we're not supposed to look at that. All right, next article here. Hamas accepts raw deal in hope Trump will force Israel to withdraw from Gaza. Hamas, 2 years into the Gaza genocide, has reportedly accepted a raw deal in which they'll give up their captives in the hope that President Trump will force Israel to go through with a complete withdrawal from Gaza. Oh, I don't think that's happening, do you? I sincerely doubt it. Leaked texts show Charlie Kirk threatened to, quote, leave the pro-Israel cause 2 days before his murder. Yeah, that was a pretty big story this last week. Don't know if you guys saw that. Candace Owens on Monday released bombshell texts, which have been since confirmed by TPUSA leadership, showing that Charlie, just 2 days before his assassination, threatened to leave the pro-Israel cause after he lost another huge Jewish donor giving $2 million a year because he wouldn't cancel Tucker. So we're going to look at those texts here in just a minute. I've got it pulled up. Larry Ellison's son buys the Free Press, installs Barry Weiss as CBS news editor-in-chief. We're going to look at that a little closer too. Other points of interest about that. Israel paying up to $4.1 million to brainwash Americans with VR, target churches with geofencing ads, something we've already touched on tonight. Trump, Hamas ready for peace. Israel must immediately stop bombing Gaza. So they're hoping for the best here, but I just don't see that happening. I mean, they might stop for a little while, but only long enough to get their people back from Hamas, I'm guessing. Okay, so those are the top headlines on information liberation. And this one about Larry Ellison, I mean, if you guys don't already know who he is, he's a huge technocrat and one of the original people that had to do with Oracle, the company Oracle. Larry Ellison's son buys the Free Press, installs Barry Weiss as CBS news editor-in-chief. So they seem to be trying to corner the market to some degree on the mainstream media. By they, I mean this guy, Larry Ellis. Larry Ellison. And I just did a quick search on here just to see what they have already managed to get their hands on. And it is pretty interesting. Larry Ellison is building a media empire with his son David, which includes control over Paramount Global, as in Paramount Pictures, and its assets like CBS News, or as we say, CBS Snooze, through Skydance Media and a stake in TikTok. The family is also reportedly considering acquiring Warner Brothers Discovery, which would add CNN, HBO, and other major media assets into their portfolio. I mean, how is this legal that they can swallow up all of these different media companies? This rapid expansion aims to create a massive media conglomerate with influence across traditional news, and social media. Key components of the Ellison empire include Paramount Global, and then mentioning some of the other sub-companies here: Paramount Pictures, CBS, MTV, and Nickelodeon. Also includes CBS News. Also includes TikTok. The Ellison family is set to acquire a significant stake in the U.S. operations of TikTok, giving them influence over the popular social media platform's data and algorithm. Wow. And then Warner Brothers Discovery, reportedly considering a bid for Warner Brothers Discovery, which would add CNN, HBO, and Warner Brothers Studios to their assets. I remember years ago whenever Time Warner joined forces, and what a big deal that was. And that was just two major media companies. And look at this guy, or I should say this family, the Ellison family, acquiring all of these different huge mainstream media pieces. But as I always say on this show, I guess it's okay when they do it, because apparently there's not going to be anyone challenging them. Anyway, RT articles, got a few of those pulled up. Ukraine to get Tomahawks if the war is not settled, according to Trump. Trump has agreed that sending the weapons to Kiev would be a step of aggression towards Russia. You don't say. Yeah, Tomahawks. The range of Tomahawks is like 1,500 miles instead of just a few hundred miles, which is what they've had so far. So they can pretty much hit anywhere that they want inside of Russia proper. That is not good news. And not only that, the Russians have said because Tomahawks can be fitted with nuclear weapons, they will have to assume that the Tomahawk missiles, when they're in flight, are nuclear tipped, which means they will launch nukes on their end. So you can see how quickly things will go bad. Trump has said that he might talk to his Russian counterpart Putin about the possibility of sending long-range Tomahawk missiles to Kiev. He did not elaborate on whether he has made the decision. Speaking to reporters today, Trump stressed that Ukraine would like to have Tomahawks, but he would discuss that with Putin. I might say, look, if this war is not going to get settled, then I'm going to send them Tomahawks. Putin has repeatedly said that Moscow was ready to end the conflict, but the root causes of it needed to be addressed first, including the rights of the Russian population living in the Ukraine, neo-Nazi divisions, and NATO expansion. Moscow has repeatedly accused the authorities in Kiev of being unwilling to end hostilities, which that's, of course, 100% true. Yeah, they'd have no desire in doing that. They want their endless war. And they actually want to take over Russia. That's what they really want when it all comes down to the final deal here. Trump has recently claimed he actually made the decision on whether Ukraine will get long-range Tomahawk missiles, but will have to ask the question, where are they sending them? Tomahawks cost an estimated $1.3 million each and have a range of 1,550 miles. Yeah, meaning they could potentially reach Moscow and far beyond. Yeah, exactly. So, and then I don't think anybody has bothered to remind Trump that Russia has the Oreshnik missile system. And we saw that demonstration last year. I don't think he seems to remember that too much. And then, let's see, the next article I pulled up on RT, I just thought I would mention it just because we didn't seem to hear much about it over here. Deadly earthquake hits the Philippines. At least 2 people have been killed in the southern part of the country. So this just happened on Friday. Powerful 7.4 magnitude quake hit off of the southern Philippines on Friday, setting off tsunami warnings, which 7.4 is not really big enough for much of a tsunami, but that's about when the warnings start in, forcing residents in coastal areas to flee to higher grounds. Yeah, 2 people were killed in Matay City. Several buildings sustained damages, and roads were cracked, and power outages were reported in affected districts. So let me play this. I don't have the sound hooked up to where you can hear it, but you don't really need to. It's mostly just people gasping and screaming a little bit. This is in looks to be almost like an airport or something, but I don't know. I think it's more like a college setting or something, because they have movable plastic type chairs that they're sitting on. Anyways, I guess it was fairly big quake for that area, 7.4 magnitude in the Philippines. Anyway, thought I would mention that. Thought that was pretty wild. Earthquakes in diverse places. The Nobel that wasn't Trump's. We all know that old POTUS Trump wanted to be a Nobel laureate for sure, but it wasn't to be. So the Nobel that wasn't Trump's. Why Oslo chose a Venezuelan rebel over a peacemaker by honoring an opposition leader wanted in Caracas. The Nobel Committee reignited a debate over who gets to define peace. So they gave the prize to her. Maria Corina Machado, 2025 Nobel Peace Prize. Been one of the most prominent faces of Venezuela's opposition. The committee's language is familiar, writes peaceful transition, but the story behind it isn't. Machado's record blends volunteer election networks with long-running fights over foreign funding. Her name has appeared in cases tied to efforts to unseat the government, charges that she rejects, and a country remains split over where legitimate politics ends and the regime change begins. The award lifts a domestic struggle onto a global stage and drops it into a fresh context. For much of the year, chatter about the Nobel for Trump hung in the air, and the very idea of what counts as peacemaking is once again up for debate far beyond Caracas. Yeah, they awarded it to her, and she actually dedicated it to Trump. Here she is years ago meeting Bush in 2005. Let's see here. I'm looking to see where if their quote from her is in here. It probably is. Why Oslo chose her instead. In announcing its decision, the Nobel Committee said it was honoring Maria Corina Machado for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. I think they still have a dictator, don't they? Anyway, yeah. But she did dedicate it to Trump after she received it. So that information's probably on here somewhere. So disappointed again. Sorry, Don. You didn't get the one thing that you wanted. It seemed, anyway. I don't know. I think it's totally fine. Speaking of Trump, if you ever wondered about his judgment, this might make you understand exactly what he's all about. Trump received the COVID VAXX and the flu shot during second physical of the year. So isn't that lovely? He received the COVID VAXX and the flu shot during his visit to Walter Reed Medical Center a couple days ago. His physician said in a memo released by the White House. Now, why do you suppose he did that? And this is the quote here. In preparation for upcoming international travel, Trump has received preventative health screenings and immunizations. You know my thoughts on that, I think. Including annual influenza and updated CV-19 booster VAXXs. So there you go. So yes, they say now that the, shall we say, the CER countdown on Trump has now commenced. I think you know what I mean. We won't get into it too much here because I've gotten myself into a lot of trouble talking about things like this freely on the wonderful platform called YouTube. But I think you know where we stand here on this show on all of that. But just the fact that he knew literally nothing, apparently, about these VAXXs and chose to take them anyway, which, you know, he could have had. Maybe he lucked out and the doctor or nurse that gave them to him gave him a placebo, but we have no way of knowing. But we might know soon, given the fact that this was a booster, according to this. So, yes, he is now on the CANCER watch. And who knows what else. Any other sorts of situations where people have died suddenly, let's just say. Because they are oh so safe and effective. Yes, of course I'm joking. All right, I thought this one was pretty good news, actually. I wondered about this before. Papua New Guinea. Who would have ever thought? But Papua New Guinea officially declares Christian identity in constitution. Isn't that wild? You'd think it would mostly be like natives and stuff. Papua New Guinea is now officially recognized as a Christian country following a constitutional amendment passed in March. The change, led by the Prime Minister, a Seventh-day Adventist, adds a declaration to the Constitution's preamble acknowledging God the Father, Jesus Christ the Son, and the Holy Spirit as our Creator and Sustainer of the entire universe and the source of our powers and authorities. Wow. The move affirms Christianity's foundational role in the nation's identity, with more than 90% of its 11 million citizens identifying as Christian. 90%. The announcement comes as Papua New Guinea celebrates its 50th Independence Day, marking half of a century since gaining sovereignty from Australia in 1975. Man, that's pretty interesting, huh? So I guess if you want to get away from the U.S. and our, pagan leanings at this point here, have a look at Papua New Guinea. Can't be that expensive to move there, I wouldn't think. No, of course, I'm joking. Yes, that's way down. Not too far from the Philippines, not too far from Australia. Way down there. Pretty wild, though. 90% of the 11 million citizens identify as Christians. And I have a friend that lives in the Philippines, again, not too far from there, and he says that people there are so nice, and there are many Christians in the Philippines as well. I don't know how many, but pretty interesting that the numbers are that large in that area. But that's good news. Came across this one and wanted to mention it. The one world religion as prophesied. The Abrahamic family house. Take a look. So we have the church, the synagogue, the mosque. End Times Watch is the name of this. The Bible warns that in the last days there will be a spiritual deception that unites the world under a false religious system. Revelation 17:3 and 5. And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast full of names of blasphemy, and upon her forehead was written a name. Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. In Revelation 17, the woman represents a powerful religious system, one that influences kings, nations, and people across the earth. Revelation 17:15. This system will eventually be used by the Antichrist to gain control and deceive the world into worshiping him. 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4 and Revelation 13:4-8. The Abrahamic family house in Abu Dhabi, uniting a church, mosque, and synagogue side by side, is presented as a symbol of peace, unity, and interfaith harmony. On the surface, it promotes tolerance and understanding among the three major Abrahamic faiths. However, to many Bible-believing Christians, it also appears to foreshadow something far more prophetic: the rise of a one-world religion that will emerge in the end times. So that's interesting, huh? Picture of Trump and some various members of different religious groups here. Abrahamic Family House is closely connected to the broader framework of the Abraham Accords. The Accords were an agreement brokered during Trump's presidency, the first time around, under which the UAE officially normalized relations with Israel. The interfaith complex is often described as a symbolic and physical expression of the spirit of those accords. And on May 16th this year, Trump visited the Abrahamic Family House during a Middle East tour. His visit, statements, and the timing seem to emphasize the symbolism of interfaith harmony, peace, tolerance, and bridging divides, both religious and geopolitical. The Abrahamic Family House is treated as part of the soft diplomacy around the Abraham Accords and the UAE's efforts to be a leader in interfaith cooperation. It says, I invite you to view the pictures below of inside of the 3 buildings. What do you see? So these are some of the photos of the insides of these buildings that are amazingly immaculate. Is this a place that invites your spirit to want to be there, or do you feel the hollowness of a place that whispers not to enter? Perhaps you feel nothing. Perhaps you feel everything. The Bible does call for unity, but only within the truth of Jesus Christ. There is one body and one Spirit, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God, and Father of all. Ephesians 4:4-6. So anyway, it goes on, and it's interesting that they're trying to put these Abrahamic faiths together. And I could see where you might get the idea that somehow that could be a one world religion, and maybe it will be. I tend to think that, and I've mentioned on this show many times at this point, that I personally think, based on a lot of evidence, that it will be King Charles III revealed as the biblical Antichrist sometime within the next few months to year or so, given the fact of his age. I think about has to be. And if there is a one world religion, his religion right now is environmentalism, at least from an outward perspective. The way he talks to the world and the environmentalism is really his main religion. You can call it paganism, you can call it whatever you want, New Age. Of course, we know the dark side. We've heard about for many years about the actual satanic part of the stuff that he takes part in, like pedophilia and so on. Well, even though he's involved in all that stuff, the environmentalism, I think, will most likely be whatever the one world religion will be based around. But that, of course, is just, I don't have any proof of that. That's just a feeling that I've had for some time, just based on who he is and what he sort of stands for. So, I don't know. We'll see. But this idea, this Abrahamic Family House, is pretty interesting. And I could see where people would go down that road as far as, people talk about the merging of Christianity and Islam and calling it Chrislam and stuff. I don't think that'll work, because they're too different. They're too disparate. Those two religions are so different. I just don't see how that would work. And when you look at Charles, he's not really about either one of those. He's more Islam than he is Christianity. I just don't see him compromising necessarily on that, but I do think environmentalism, and then based on social credit score and carbon credits and all this stuff that they want to implement, it could become a religion if you want to look at it that way. So I don't know. That was kind of long-winded, but I thought that I was, that's what came to mind. I just wanted to impart that. Of course, you guys are welcome to disagree, but that seems to be, to me, where it's going. Now, this was a big story around here over the last few days. Update: no survivors in blast at woman-owned, I didn't realize it was woman-owned, but Tennessee explosive plant. There's a Tennessee explosives plant. 16 dead. And I've never heard the official numbers here, but says there are no survivors after a massive explosion at a military facility in Hickman, Tennessee. Yeah, Hickman, that's the county. According to authorities, 16 people are dead after the explosion at Accurate Energetic Systems. Accurate Energetic Systems is proudly a, quote, woman-owned small business, according to the company's website. Well, yes, but I would also add that the building is completely gone. So there's not really any proud woman-owned small business now, other than on paper. This is the website. Let me see if the notice will come up if I refresh here. Yeah, okay. So this is their website, AESYS.biz. At approximately 7:45 on October 10th, there was a tragic accident at our facility. Yes, it blew it sky high. Emergency response teams and investigative agencies remain on scene, and the situation is under active investigation. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families, coworkers, and community members affected by this incident. We extend our gratitude to all first responders who continue to work tirelessly under difficult conditions. We will provide updates as more verified information becomes available. So this is their website, Accurate Energetic Systems, AESYS.biz, if you guys want to follow along at home. So you can look at the website here. I don't know what, if anything, has been modified since all this happened. But you can see this is kind of what they do. Manufacturing and processing of bulk explosives. They were a defense contractor. And aren't we in the middle of like several potential wars right now? You suppose this was an accident? I don't know. Fabrication of energetic devices and demolition explosives. Pressing of explosive munition pellets. So you can see how things could go wrong pretty quickly, given everything that they were doing. Our commitment to excellence is underscored by our blah, blah, blah certification. It's in McEwen, Tennessee. So that is about probably, 30 or so miles from where I sit. Maybe a little more. I don't know. I didn't measure it exactly. So it would be interesting to do a deep dive on this company and find out what they were doing and if they were supplying weapons, see defense applications, if they were supplying any kind of munitions or weapons to Ukraine. That's what I would want to look at first and foremost. And then, of course, are they involved in supplying munitions to the IDF and who knows what else? And this Daily Mail article had a few extra pictures here. I thought I would just show you guys. You can see what's left. There's nothing left, literally. It's just smoke and some rubble here on the ground. There's a few skeletons of some cars, I guess. But I'm not sure how far these cars were away from the explosion. This video just shows a nearby house. I don't know how nearby. Maybe several miles away. You can see the camera just shaking a little bit as the explosion happened. Not a lot of information in that particular video, but this is what I wanted to show you guys. There's the smoke plume there, but look at this. This is the before and after. So this is what it looked like before the explosion. All of those buildings and parking here. And then you can see what it looks like now. It's literally completely gone. The blast was heard from miles away, causing shelves and windows to rattle. This person was roughly 15 miles from the factory. She said, quote, "We thought we were at war and that I was going to die." How about that? So yeah, it shook these people up all over the place. I do have a friend that lives in this town, and I have not been in touch with him yet to find out if he was, if he heard that or if he was anywhere near it. But I will do that this coming week and let you guys know. But Accurate Energetic Systems, 1,300 acres. Yeah, there have been a lot of people saying, "Oh yeah, it's woman owned," and I don't know that means anything other than, accidents happen. I understand that, but to me, it would be more interesting to know if they were supplying any sort of munitions to Ukraine and so on and so forth. That to me is where I would go with, what you're looking into. But I imagine there's some people on TikTok and YouTube that are already looking at this. But it is pretty wild. And yes, thoughts and prayers for sure. So at least 16 people were killed, and I've heard that it was even a higher number than that. I think there's another article I've got here that we'll get to that may say 18 or 19. So I don't really know. I don't think it's really officially come out as to how many people were killed. But that's really, really sad. And clearly a horrendous accident. Hopefully it was just an accident, but we just don't know. So this is a futurism article. Elon Musk's satellites now constantly falling out of the sky. Musk's race to dominate our planet's orbit with his satellite constellations is creating tons of space junk. Enough of it, in fact, that we might want to start looking up. According to storied Smithsonian astrophysicist Jonathan McDowell, there are now 1 or 2 of these Starlink satellites falling back to Earth every single day. I wonder if that's true. That's what this guy's saying. Says McDowell's warning that the number's only going to go up. Wow. Alarming statistic underscores the concerns around rapidly populating the planet's low Earth orbit with expendable satellites. Yes. Let's see here. It says Musk's SpaceX has been launching thousands of them up there using his reusable rocket since 2019, with more than 8,000 currently in operation. Wow. With those efforts accelerating in recent years, SpaceX has launched more than 2,000 satellites this year alone. Meanwhile, its competitors are rushing to catch up with their own satellite-based internet service, with Amazon kickstarting its plan to deploy more than 3,200 with its first batch launched earlier this year. Wow. What a network, man. With all constellations deployed, we expect about 30,000 low Earth orbit satellites between Amazon and Starlink and others, and perhaps another 20,000 satellites from Chinese systems. How in the world can there possibly be 50,000 low Earth orbiting satellites at some point? So, of course, some are going to burn up and come back to Earth. So, anyway, there's a little bit more information on this article on futurism. Thought that was pretty wild. Very strange. But, yeah, another crazy thing going on that Musk has taken part in. So, here's the Charlie texts that were leaked, I guess you could call it, or talked about by Candace this week. So this is, according to what she said, it was between Charlie and I think she said 7 or 8 other people in this group text chat. So it was, just texting back and forth on phones, but in a group. Charlie says, and we don't really have the date on this. There's a time, but not a date. So I don't know when this was. I think she said it was a couple days before he was murdered. Although that's not really part of the screenshot, so I don't know. Just lost another huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year, because we won't cancel Tucker. And then he says, I'm thinking of inviting Candace. And somebody in the group says, ugh. And Charlie responds by saying, Jewish donors play into all the stereotypes, and I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. That's all from Charlie. Wow. And then somebody else from the group says, please don't invite Candace. This might feel good short term, but is not good long term, in my opinion. Blah, blah, blah. So, anyway, 2 days before he was shot, before he caught a bullet in the neck, as she says. So, if you want to hear more about that, that is on this Candace Owens episode 251, which we'll link to in the Substack post. That is what the link is in the upper left corner up there where the QR code is.
The arrests so far include a Trende Aragua gang member and a man wanted for rape of a child.
The Department of Homeland Security says there were 2 separate alleged incidents of drivers using their vehicles to ram into other vehicles with federal agents. Prosecutors say Martinez and Ruiz used their vehicles to box in the agent's car. Court documents say an agent, unable to move his vehicle, got out and fired about 5 shots at Martinez. This video captured from about 6 blocks north. Here you see the driver of a black SUV ram into the back of a white pickup truck with flashing blue lights. It's not clear who is driving the SUV. The SUV chases the pickup down Kedzie towards the direction of protesters. A second black SUV slams into the first one, and what appear to be uniformed officers jump out.
In California and Oregon and Washington and Illinois and Colorado, of people ramming federal agents' vehicles. And then there's lots of cases now where just federal vehicles, period, are being burned up around the country. So they moved on from the Tesla cars to that. So this is exponential what's going on.
Portland is burning to the ground. You have agitators, insurrectionists.
We have California Governor Gavin Newsom, who celebrated posting this on X. The court granted our request for a temporary restraining order halting any federalization, relocation, or deployment of any Guard members to Oregon from any state. Trump's abuse of power won't stand. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller then wrote this on X. There is no legal distinction, he says, between a state volunteering guardsmen to guard the border and volunteering guardsmen to guard a federal immigration facility. Either we have a federal government, a supremacy clause, and a nation, or we don't.
Who's going to stop him? Well, the courts. That's who's going to stop them.
Trump's now is deploying 300 troops to Chicago after nights of mayhem and shooting at the feds and throwing bottles and concrete at them and just going completely insane. So this is all going exactly like I said it would.
At a time such as this, it demands one thing for sure. We must fight fire with fire.
No president, as far as I know, has tried to control the Federal Reserve, the central bank. He is amassing power in a way that will destroy our democracy.
Running for Attorney General, the top cop in Virginia, wishing not only that he had 2 bullets to put in a guy's head, but then he wishes death on his children. And Todd Gilbert has small kids. And for Jay Jones to wish death on his small children is beyond belief.
The blue cities have been seized by the Democrats. Same thing in Europe. The no-go zones, the Islamic takeover. This is a plan. That's why they produced the movie 2 years ago that was released last year, 5-6 months for the election, called Civil War. Big budget.
What kind of American are you?
So over here, you guys, what do you call this? You call
it West Coast offense. It's a Western Alliance.
The Western Alliance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have Governor Pritzker, the Dem, the transgender kingpin, a real sicko.
They killed somebody. So here it's really hard to know exactly what the facts are, and they won't let us access the facts. They are just putting out their propaganda.
They ran the federal agent off the road. They fled on foot westbound 37th place.
Have them stay put 2 or 3 blocks away, all right? Have them hold tight until I give you further direction, please.
And people run up to ICE with their hands in their pockets like they got a gun or back behind their shirt saying, I'm going to kill you. And then when ICE responds, oh, you victimized me. It's like when they jump in front of people's vehicles. They're told in their Antifa training, go so far and don't worry, we've got a cover story for you. We'll get you out of jail. We're about to have a communist uprising, don't worry. But the big takeaway is the governor of Illinois and the governor of California and others calling it their alliance, and the Western Alliance, right out of the movie. That's the group that does the Civil War and takes over the country. After the Antifa massacre, they had a little newscast in the film. Like, the Civil War all started when Antifa was massacred. And the whole thing's about race war. People watched it and went, we don't know what the movie's about. An idiot could see it. And you say, well, it's just a movie. No, it's the Podesta plan, writ large.
Yeah, pretty interesting, huh? The Podesta plan, something we've been talking about off and on this broadcast. Yes, it is a plan. It is apparently underway now to bring civil war to the U.S., and they're trying their hardest. So I wanted to mention this one just because this is just another one of those wacky wrinkles in the whole Charlie Kirk thing, and I don't know if you guys know about this. I just heard about this today. What if I told you Utah's new medical examiner might be Jewish and likely has Jewish kids? What if I told you she was also hired by a Jew? What if I told you she was hired around the same time as Josh Hammer and he began keeping tabs on Charlie Kirk? What does it all mean? So the Jewish thing isn't really, to me, that interesting, but this person definitely looks trans, or at least appears to be. Yeah, I would be more than shocked to find out if she isn't Jewish. And maybe so, but almost has a look like trans, too. I don't know. But so that is the Utah medical examiner, supposedly. I don't know what's going on here, but Dr. Deidre Amaro. So yeah, that is posted here on X. And again, if you happen to miss this show, I thought it was a good one, but all of her shows have been really good lately. Candace Owens on YouTube. So feel free to go there and check that out. And then here's the tweets that we mentioned, or not tweets, but the texts that we mentioned a little bit ago. So yeah, that's really an interesting story. I think one of the most interesting things that came out on this particular episode was that she has pretty much confirmed from people who have seen Charlie's body that it is an entrance wound. There was no exit wound, but the difference is it couldn't possibly have been a 30-06. It had to be a smaller round, like a 9mm, like a 22 or 9mm from the front. A hollow point, possibly, because there's no other way to explain the size of the entry wound. So the entry wound has a lot to do with, has everything to do with the size of the caliber of the round. So she's saying here that it had to be from the front and probably a smaller round of some sort. So we're not being told the truth on that, of course, from the officials, but, you know, it's going to be up to the internet sleuths like Candace and many others, I'm sure, to find out the actual truth as to, at least based on the evidence we have access to, as to what happened. So anyway, I just thought that was pretty wild. And she did say that she's pretty much completely confirmed that it was an entry wound. The bullet fragment was found in his neck, and therefore it couldn't possibly have been a larger round like that. It had to be a smaller one. So that means it wasn't the kid from the rooftop. It had to be someone either in the crowd close or someone in a different location, you know, a different rooftop or something shooting at him. So I don't know, but it's looking very strange. All right, I found this one and thought it was very strange as well. Robots are learning to make baby humans. 20 have already been born. So this is a website called Illuminum, as in illumination, I guess. Aluminum. So isn't that nice? Driving the news, a pioneering clinical trial in Mexico has led to the birth of at least 20 babies conceived using robotic automation and artificial intelligence with minimal human intervention. The experimental system, called Aura, A-U-R-A, automates over 200 steps of the in vitro fertilization, IVF, process, from selecting sperm to fertilizing eggs, and is being tested in clinics serving low-income patients. The trial, led by Mexican fertility expert and specialist Dr. Alejandro Chavez Badiola, and backed by New York-based startup Conceivable Life Sciences. So that means that must be who's supplying the money. Marks a significant technological advance in reproductive medicine. So how about that? AI now involved in making human babies. And of course, once it all goes that direction, then AI can control how many human babies there are, can't it? So a little bit more information on this site. Yeah, Illuminum. Okay, anyway, thought that one was pretty interesting. All right, and then this one, you guys will probably find this one interesting. I mentioned this last week, Israel paying influencers up to $7,000 per post to occupy information space. So, not really new information on that. We talked about this last week. Yeah, $7,000 per post. Well, up to $7,000 per post. Well, here's the interesting thing. People figured out, based on a couple things here. Look at this. Somebody referenced Grok here. Hey, Grok, how does 7,000 US dollars compare in value to the 30 silver pieces given to Judas Iscariot to sell out Jesus? Was it about the same amount adjusted for inflation? That's the question. Grok answers, the 30 pieces of silver Judas received were likely Tyrian shekels, equivalent to about 120 denarii, or 4 months' wages for a laborer then. Adjusting for modern U.S. minimum wage, $7.25 an hour, or $58 a day, that is roughly $7,000 today. So yes, it's comparable in purchasing power terms. Wow. Melt value of the silver is lower, around $300 to $500 now. The melt value of the silver. So yes, just happens to be about the same as what Judas Iscariot received when he got 30 pieces of silver for betraying Jesus Christ. And here's further math here, I guess. Judas was given 30 Tyrian shekels, 120 denarii. Ancient daily wage, 1 denarius. Modern U.S. minimum wage for this year, $7.25 an hour, 58 a day. 120 days times 58 a day is $6,960 or $7,000. Israel reportedly pays influencers $7,000 per post. The $7,000 figure aligns with both Judas's payment and Israel's influencer pay. But I'm sure it's a coincidence, aren't you? All right, into the American dream. While Americans sleep, there's concern that Canada, the United Kingdom, and Europe continue to implement the BEAST system. Yeah, we've been talking about that literally every week on here. Would you like to live in a country where the government could secretly cut off your phone and internet service if you're accused of spreading misinformation? Or how about a country where you must submit to a digital identification system if you want to get a job? We live at a time when our liberties are being eroded in countless ways. If we do not stand up and speak out now, those that are seeking to take our liberties away will just continue to push the envelope. Eventually, we could find ourselves living in a beast system society in which we don't have any liberties left at all. Personally, I think that's exactly where we're headed based on where we are on the Revelation timeline. As we stated at the beginning of the show tonight, a new bill has been introduced in Canada which has some extremely alarming implications. According to the Canadian Constitution Foundation, this bill would allow the government to secretly order telecommunications service providers to stop providing services to individual Canadians. You know, and you talk about this and people are like, well, that's Canada. Let them do what they want. Yeah, I understand that sentiment, but it's coming here. If Canada does it, it's going to be other countries too. So yeah, it'll definitely come here. If Canada does it, I mean, we may be down the line a little bit further, but the UK, it'll happen in the UK, it'll happen in Australia, it'll happen in New Zealand, it'll happen all over the world. So we will get it as well. This Times of Israel article is also one that I mentioned a little bit ago. Different slant on that. Israel to spend up to $4.1 million in bid to bolster support among Christians in Western U.S. So yeah, talking about bringing in the churches, evangelicals in particular. So I won't spend any more time on that tonight, but that article is one that we will link to. That is the Times of Israel. That's where that is. NDTV. Researchers claim alien DNA in humans might be inserted into our gene. The study asserts that the process of aliens abducting humans and inserting genes into human DNA might have affected millions of humans. Might have. We just don't know. Researchers have made bizarre claims stating that they have found that aliens might have abducted humans and inserted genes into their DNA, which caused humanity to undergo genetic transformation. Humanity may be undergoing genetic transformation, lead researcher Dr. Rempel, the founder of and CEO of DNA Resonance Research Foundation, told the Daily Mail. Interesting name, DNA Resonance. The study, which has yet to be peer-reviewed, so nobody believes it yet then, asserts the process of aliens abducting humans and inserting genes into human DNA might have affected millions of humans. So I don't know how they're going to prove this one, but I guess there'll be a paper about it eventually. But anyway, yeah, that's a pretty wild one, huh? Definitely sounds like Genesis 6. If you don't know what I'm talking about, maybe look that one up. Federal grand jury on Thursday indicted Letitia James on charges of bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution. The charges relate to a mortgage she took out to purchase a property in Norfolk, Virginia. She allegedly secured favorable loan terms in which she claimed the property would be her second residence and not an investment property. Prosecutors claim she did not live at the home and instead rented it out. That would be a no-no in this case. If convicted, she could face up to 30 years in prison and $1 million fine for each charge. I don't think there's any chance any of that happens. She is due to appear in court the first time later this month. She investigated Trump in 2020 for allegedly lying about his wealth to bolster his business and secure tax benefits. Yes, she said no one's above the law, except for her. She thinks she is, or should be. So this one I thought was interesting. We were told pretty recently that Biden had some minor surgery done on his forehead, I think it was, removing some skin cancers, if I remember right. Well, this one sounds like it might be a little more serious. Biden begins radiation therapy for aggressive prostate cancer. Thoughts and prayers. Isn't that what King Charles had, supposedly? Prostate cancer? Anyway, former President Joe is undergoing radiation treatment for advanced prostate cancer, his team has confirmed. He still has a team. Why does he still have a team? As part of the treatment plan for prostate cancer, Biden is currently undergoing radiation therapy and hormone treatment. So he's been taking a pill form of hormone medication, according to what they're saying here on NBC News. And that he's reportedly doing well. There he is there. So anyway, just thought I would mention it just because, I mean, that's not something that the regular media is talking about at all. All right, here's this one. Western Journal, Trump takes advantage of the Schumer shutdown. Yeah, if you didn't notice, technically the U.S. government is officially closed for business right now. Still are. I think that's going to probably be that way until around the 18th, according to what I'm hearing. October the 18th, which would be next Saturday. They're trying to make it long enough, I guess, to cause enough havoc that they want to be able to blame Trump for all of it, of course, when it's Schumer and his cronies who have actually caused this. Anyway, this article is about Trump firing a bunch of people. It says White House began conducting mass layoffs on Friday amid a prolonged government shutdown, including slashing an entire department under the U.S. Department of the Treasury. The entire staff of the Community Financial Institutions Fund, CDFI, received a layoff notice on Friday. So program's elimination comes as White House officials repeatedly warned that the administration would pursue mass firings and budget cuts if Democrats did not reverse course and reopen the government. Yeah, because they didn't want to fund their radical agenda. That was why it all got shut down. Anyway, that's on the Western Journal, westernjournal.com. All right, let's see here. Weekly roundup. Trump warns of China's strange activity of withholding key products from U.S. Israel Hamas agreed to Trump's peace deal, and Christians continue to be slaughtered in Africa. So this is a article that covers a whole bunch of different things, but this is supposed to be China, I guess, in the future. Posting on Truth Social on Friday, Trump issued another one of his warnings to a fellow superpower that it had better mind its manners or else. Typically, it's Russia that gets the brunt of public shaming from U.S. officials, but this time it was China. Trump is worried, as well he should be, about China's latest behavior in efforts to withhold crucial products from the U.S. His Substack, leohoman.substack.com, global push to reshape agriculture and human diets. Bill Gates and the war on meat. That's the most recent one. Trump just took another big step toward World War III with Russia from a few days ago. Anyway, Leo's Substack's a pretty good one. Got a few natural news articles tonight and thought I would bring to your attention if you guys want to look. 2 California counties resurrect the mask mandates in calculated mockery of human freedom and dignity. I was looking to see what counties. California counties of Sonoma and Santa Cruz act as willing pawns in the broader theater of psychological manipulation, having announced the return of mask mandates in healthcare facilities, a policy set to oppress residents from November 1st this year until April next year. Wow. So Santa Cruz County and Sonoma County in California. Mask mandates are back, at least for those 2 counties, and I guess only in healthcare facilities. So take that for what it's worth. Anyway, that's all California for you on the cutting edge. Tunisian man sentenced to death for Facebook posts. Yeah, you heard me right. Freed after presidential pardon. Tunisia. This person, we'll just call him Ben. Tunisian man sentenced to death for critical Facebook posts about the president and other officials was freed after a presidential pardon following international outcry. They were going to kill this guy because of his Facebook posts. Granted, it was Tunisia. It's not, Ohio, but, it's just really strange. So I thought that was pretty wild. Here's the president, I guess. So, who knows, but I just thought I would mention that just because I'm sure the powers that be would like to implement that as soon as possible around here, too. And we've mentioned Enoch, the AI engine of natural news before. Apparently, they have updated it to 2.0. If you guys use that at all, or if you want to check it out, it's probably the best one out there as far as AI goes because it's, it's been fed the information from alternative media, in particular alternative health information, but alternative news, and it won't basically gasp and laugh at you like ChatGPT or Grok might do if you ask it certain things. So the AI engine called Enoch 2.0 has been announced, a new AI sheriff in town that outsmarts ChatGPT, Grok, and Gemini. So anyway, have a look at that if you guys want. It is, where is it? I think it's on brightu.ai if I remember right. Yeah, BrightU, like Bright University, brightu.ai is where it is. So yeah, another free AI that's out there, and that one's a good one because it's not quite so woke as the others are. All right, Wine Press News, got a few articles from here tonight. Trump RX, Trump Inc.'s deal with AstraZeneca to provide cheaper drugs following the Pfizer agreement. The art of the drug deal expands. I'm really excited to announce AstraZeneca's commitment to your vision for a healthy America, says the CEO. And we can believe them, by golly. I mean, they would never lie to us, just like Pfizer wouldn't, right? Following a deal made with Pfizer last month, Trump administration inked a new agreement with Swedish pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca to provide drugs at discounted prices to Medicare insurance program recipients as part of the administration's new Trump RX program. The Trump RX website was quietly soft launched yesterday. The program is expected to launch in January. So isn't that lovely? I'm sure he's probably getting a pretty penny for the licensing and use of his name. I'm guessing, but I don't know. Trump RX. My guess is he's getting paid big time. UK's Starmer hints he wants to mandate digital ID to access healthcare and other public services. Government doesn't care how citizens feel about it. Of course they don't. There is a case to be made about the benefits for voluntary ID into other areas. And obviously we need to make that case. I think it's a really important discussion for us to have, quote unquote. Yeah, no kidding. United Kingdom Prime Minister Starmer is now, unsurprisingly, touting digital ID not just for tackling illegal immigration, which to me is funny because it's not like the migrants are going to have to deal with digital ID. No, that's for the citizens, not the illegals. I don't know how that's supposed to tackle illegal immigration, but whatever. But as a tool for Britons to access all sorts of public resources and healthcare, among other things. So they can already do it, or they already have access to it, but they're going to make it easier by mandating digital IDs to access it. Yeah, that's going to help everybody, huh? Last month, Starmer announced a controversial decision to mandate the Brit card, which we talked about that last week, in order to legally work in the country. In a bid he claimed was designed to crack down on illegal immigration and illegal labor. They're not moving to Britain and the UK to work. They're moving there to take over. They're not working. The whole thing's just a joke. The announcement generated plenty of blowback domestically and abroad, with many Brits signing petitions to legally force Parliament to have a formal debate on whether the ID plan should be adopted. Well, what do you think will happen? Yeah, signing petitions is not going to get you what you want, you guys. Anyway, a little bit more information on this Substack post. This is on the Wine Press Substack. And then the other one on here as well, European Union to launch biometric entry and exit system for non-EU countries beginning October 12th, like today. If you refuse to provide your biometric data, you will be denied entry into the territory of European countries using the EES, which I guess is entry-exit system. So there you go. If you're planning to go to the UK, just be aware. Starting next week, which means now, 29 countries will adopt the EU's biometric entry-exit system for travelers not in the EU as part of an effort to replace traditional paper passports with digital ID. Yeah, but you see, again, it's not for the illegals. They come over on a boat and flop out of the boat onto the beach. They don't need digital IDs. I mean, how ridiculously stupid is this? The 29 countries that we're talking about, Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Croatia, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, and Sweden. The rule change also affects non-EU nations that belong to the Schengen area, including Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. So that's pretty much all of it. Not many left. I don't know if there's any left. Anyway, the EES system collects, records, and stores data listed in your travel documents, like your full name, your date of birth, date and place of each entry and exit, and facial images and fingerprints, i.e. biometric data, and whether you were refused entry. I wonder if it also mentions why you were refused entry. Maybe not. Says, footnote, the shared biometric matching service will store biometric templates, which are a mathematical representation of the biometric data stored in the Visa information system and the EES and other EU information systems, enabling searches with biometric data. Oh, wow. The EES will use the biometric matching service for its interoperability with the VIS, the Visa information system. So, I don't think that's Visa as in immigration, not Visa as in Visa card. But it sounds like it will be searchable. So, if you get your fingerprint taken somewhere else, then your biometric data is searchable because it's already in there. It's already in the system. So further information on this wine press article on Substack. Pretty interesting, huh? Well, we always have to have our plane crashes. In this case, a helicopter crash. 5 hospitalized after helicopter spirals out of control and crashes in Huntington Beach. Yep. Helicopter spiraled out of control and crashed near the shoreline of Huntington Beach on Saturday, leaving 5 people hospitalized. What's amazing is it didn't kill anybody, including people on the ground. So, okay, you want to see it. I'll play it, but there's not really any sound. There is sound, but there's not really anything that I can play because of how I have to share the videos. So we'll just watch it, and I'll leave it muted, but if you want, I can make the helicopter sounds. Anyway, you can see this person on the beach here zooms in, and watch the updraft hit the helicopter. I don't know where the helicopter's landing. I guess on the beach, but right here, watch. See it go way up? That was an updraft. And then it's just spiraling out of control and then smash right on the corner of that building right there. It didn't even land on the top of the building. So you can tell though when they lost control, and that was when they hit the updraft. Or whatever happened. I don't know exactly what happened, but that's pretty wild, huh? There's a couple of other, I guess, perspectives. This guy was right there. He was like right underneath it when it goes out of control, and because he's so close, it's almost hard to see. Look, you can see the guy in the passenger seat over there. Because he's so close, you don't really get an idea of where it lands when it hits. He's running for his life at this point, see? And then takes another shot of it when he got out of the way. And it landed on the corner of that building. And then here's the one that we just watched a little bit ago. But you can see, I don't know, I guess it's probably that draft that hit it. My guess is it's because it's an ocean breeze. I mean, yes, there's lots of crazy drafts and stuff around the beach like that. So who knows? There's probably some other, information on this post, but there's several videos, but no casualties. So thank goodness that no one else was killed, but there were apparently some injuries. So anyway, pretty wild, huh? All right, WNG.org did have an article about the Tennessee munitions plant that exploded earlier, Friday morning. Accurate Energetic Systems. So we covered that earlier, so I won't bother going into that again, but there is more information on this WNG.org article on the SIFT. And then we've got a few, I guess you could call them doom break type of articles. Obama forced taxpayers to sink $1.6 billion into this solar farm. The solar farm is now closing. So isn't that lovely? Among the many accolades showered upon him during his presidency, Barack Obama was lauded as a genius. Maybe the smartest president in U.S. history. Just a total whiz kid. Of course, I'm just reading this article. I don't actually think that. Apparently, he wasn't smart enough to wisely invest nearly $2 billion of our hard-earned money. But hey, nobody's perfect, right? That's according to the Daily Caller. The sun will soon be setting on the Ivanpah solar power facility in California's Mojave Desert. Boosted by $1.6 billion in taxpayer-backed loans in 2011, the gargantuan project was hailed by Obama's first energy secretary as an example of how America is becoming a world leader in solar energy. This is how the government feels when they spend our money on stupid green tech boondoggles. The reality, of course, is slightly less romantic. Since going into operation in 2014, Ivanpah, built at a cost of $2.2 billion, never came close to meeting its boosters' lofty expectations. In the world of solar energy, Ivanpah found itself unable to compete with conventional photovoltaic installations, which themselves are unable to meet the soaring demands of electricity-hungry AI. Yeah, it's all under control, this guy said. You're telling me a massive taxpayer-backed solar farm was a practical bust pretty much from day one? Yeah. It is what we're saying. $1.6 billion for 6,000 dead birds per year. Quite an exchange rate. Yep, hand it to old Obama. He knew what he was doing, didn't he? Or maybe not. All right, government layoffs have begun. Here are the details of the thousands of reported layoffs. Yeah, I thought I saw that somewhere. This is where it was. Yesterday, the director of Office of Budget and Management announced the layoffs have begun. I'm looking to see what all we're talking about. It says the libs are big mad about it. 1,100 to 1,200 estimated employees will be laid off within the HHS. Wow. So 1,100 to 1,200 employees just within the HHS. DHS will lose approximately 176 employees, and 1,446 employees will likely be dismissed at the Treasury Department. So another almost 1,500 there. Around 466 at the Education Department, approximately 20 to 30 EPA employees, and the HUD, Housing and Urban Development, is reducing its staff by 442. So all of these people are getting the axe, apparently. Approximately 187 employees at the Energy Department. So that's quite a few. Several thousand. Just with those ones I mentioned. So that is Not the Bee article, notthebee.com. But don't worry, everyone. Jimmy Kimmel says there is no Antifa. Yes, he did say that. We can all rest easy now and stop worrying about the mobs of violent leftists taking over American cities, as the always honest and trustworthy Jimmy Kimmel has helpfully notified everyone that there is no Antifa. Massive gaslighting, huh? According to the late-night talk show host who recently returned from his brief suspension for comments he made about the assassination of Charlie, Antifa is just an idea. He says, you understand there is no Antifa. This is an entirely imaginary organization, Kimmel exclaimed, plying the left's recent favorite assertion about the group. There is not an Antifa. This is no different than if they announced they rounded up a dozen Decepticons, like as in from the movie Transformers, or we've captured the Chupacabra, everyone. And then, of course, everybody laughs, and oh, he's so funny, he's so brilliant, they thought. Thanks for letting us know, Jimmy. It's comforting to know that the large mobs of masked, black-clad, violent anarchists running roughshod in cities like Portland and assaulting people are just imaginary. Unfortunately for Antifa, there are clues that there is some level of organization to this imaginary group. Yeah, it's not imaginary. It is real. And we started out the show tonight talking about that and proving it by all of the different funding options that they have. Remember, Riot Incorporated. Maybe those billionaires need to consult with Jimmy Kimmel to learn what they're pouring into all this financing into an imaginary organization, or maybe Jimmy Kimmel is just parroting a standard Democrat propaganda about Antifa just being an idea, quote unquote. Yeah, it's a communistic Marxist idea, and it's been carried out, and it has come to fruition. Just ask George Soros and company. Anyway, Not to Be article. I thought this one was weird. Ohio legislature introduces a law to ban people from marrying AI. So, Ohio is ahead of the game here. A while back, we reported a concerning figure that 80% of Gen Z would consider marrying an AI. An AI girlfriend company says 80% of Gen Z would consider marrying a digital companion. Please, I'm begging someone to say that this is a joke. Unfortunately, it's not. And at least one state is taking that threat seriously. According to NBC Channel 4, Ohio legislators introduced House Bill 469 for consideration, which would make it a state law that no AI program would be recognized as a sentient being. How about that? The law then gives a list of the things that prohibits AI from doing. Marry a person or another AI, be a manager or partner of any organization, own or control any form of property, and bear any liability for the harm that it causes. Wow. That last part comes with a caveat that owners of the AI will bear all liability for any harm that AI causes a human being. So they are really stepping up here in Ohio. That's pretty interesting, huh? We have the guy from The Princess Bride here saying marriage. And then, let's see, one more from Not to Be. Feds arrest man for threatening podcaster Benny Johnson and his whole family. Yeah. I don't know that I want to read the article because, we can read the article. I don't know if I want to read the letter. But yeah, Benny and his family have been threatened by this crazy person. Here's the letter. And the saddest part of your drivel is your contamination of naive minds. Maybe someone will blow your you-know-what off. We can hope. Planning any public engagements, ? Love to see your head, shall we say, well, I'm leaving a space here, explode, and your BLOOD stay in the concrete. So isn't that lovely? So this person has been arrested. Letter was sent to Benny just days after Charlie's assassination by a man named George Russell Isbell of San Diego. So the letter's on here if you want to read it. Now Isbell has been arrested and will be federally charged under the U.S. Code 18. All right, this one is one that I'll probably play you guys because I think it's important to hear it. Just after 12 here. So yeah, I have a little time. Virginia governor's race now a dead heat after Democrat candidate refuses to disavow violence in the debate. So if you don't know what's going on here, and I had to figure it out myself just because I wasn't real familiar with what's going on in Virginia. The Virginia governor's race is now a dead heat after Thursday night's live debate, in which the Democrat candidate, seen pictured below here, Abigail Spanberger, refused to disavow a fellow Democrat who was exposed as fantasizing about the murder of an opponent and his children. And that's talking about Jay Jones. Jay Jones has faced intense scrutiny after text messages surfaced in which he said that state Republican politician deserved, quote, 2 bullets in the noggin. Yeah. And also said that the politician's children should be taken out as well, as a way to make his wife rethink her political positions. So isn't that lovely? And this lady here had nothing to do with Jay Jones's text messages. But the point is she refused to disavow what Jay Jones said. And he's running for, I don't know, something else in Virginia. Virginia governor's race is now dead heat after Thursday night's live debate. I'm looking to see what, here, Jay Jones is currently running to be Virginia's next attorney general. So that's the connection. If she became the governor, then her attorney general would be the guy who called for the killing of this Republican politician. So that's what's going on here. And what I want to do here is I'm going to play this video clip because it is important that you see what's being said here. All right, audio's turned on, so I think we're good. Now let's see if this is going to play. I think it will.
Would it take him pulling the trigger? Is that what would do it? And then you would say he needs to get out of the race? Abigail, you have nothing to say? Abigail, what if he said it about your 3 children? Is that when you would say he should get out of the race, Abigail? You're running to be governor.
Miss Earl Sears.
I mean, we're talking about murder. We're talking about someone's life being taken from them. Have you nothing to say about that? Are you not
pitiful
going to
this person is?
Really, you can't go any further. You're a governor. You're supposed to stand up for all the
She's a Republican, this black lady.
Are you saying political murder is all right? Have some political courage. What you have done is you are taking political calculations about your future as governor. Well, as governor, you have to make hard choices, and that means telling Jay Jones to leave the race.
So, yeah, Winsome is the black lady there. All right. So you get the idea. There's probably no point in playing that again, but I thought that was pretty powerful as far as, just the fact that the lady continued to ask her the questions, and then the crazy woman there just wouldn't respond at all. Yeah, disgusting excuse for a human being. Exactly. Yeah, it's really sad that we have people running for office like this, but of course, those are the people in charge. And that's why we're in the predicament that we're in, really globally, is because it's people like her that want to be in charge of everything, in charge of all of us, and to be able to have themselves be above the law and have the law be applied to the little people, which is all the rest of us. And you could see how she wasn't going to condemn this person because she perceives Jay Jones as being on her team and doesn't want to burn bridges, apparently. But, it would have been interesting if the Republican lady would have asked her, just some simple questions like, would you like to have your daughter in a, in a bathroom or shower situation with grown men? This is the kind of stuff that has come up in this race. Or, she could have probably pinned her down a little bit more than she did, but she did ask some really important and poignant questions. Winsome there did. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because it's really starting to get ugly, and Spanberger remained tight-lipped. Yeah, she just pretended like she didn't even hear it. So it just gives you a little glimpse into their mentality. I mean, they're just, if it doesn't agree with whatever their narrative is, they just ignore you, and that's exactly how they work. Not just Democrats, but leftists and people like that who are so woke that they can't, they can no longer function. They don't have a working brain anymore. Anyway, thought that one's pretty interesting. That's on InfoWars. And then vaccine impact. This is kind of something I mentioned earlier. It's further information on this subject matter. Largest Christian geofencing in U.S. history. Your pastor and church are being paid by the Israeli government to track you and your views on Israel. So we kind of mentioned this a little bit ago, but this is further information, and then there's a whole video here explaining what is geofencing. Yeah, if you're attending your church or a gathering with your pastor who supports Israel, the Israeli government is probably paying your pastor and your church to track you through what is called geofencing. It's a way to track people who enter a defined geographical area, uses the person's cell phone and or their vehicle to identify and track them. Yeah, that's right. Remember, your cars are smart cars too, so it's not just your phone. Here is a short video description in less than 2 minutes long. So what is geofencing? Software knows who you are and where you go and how you respond to ads and messaging as it builds a profile on you. The more connected you are, the more you are involved in social media sites, the more it knows about you and your political and religious views as it adds it to your profile. Yeah, and keep in mind, too, you don't really hear people mention it very often, so I'll mention it. But you know all those apps you have on your phone? You know why they're free? You know why you can go to the App Store or go to the Google Play Store and download all these apps for free? Yeah, there might be some paid upgrades on certain apps, but they're free because they're reporting your data back to the people that made the apps. That's why. They give you it free because it's literally a Trojan horse in your life. It's giving information on your phone. That's why you have those long end user license agreement things that you just skip past and don't read, that are multiple pages long, because if you read everyone, you'd pretty much have to quit your job and just read end user license agreements your whole life. So nobody reads them. They just skip by them. But the point is, they say in there that they're tracking you and they're keeping your information and they're selling your information and they're providing their information from your phone back to the developer. That's why the apps are free. And that is in part how geofencing gets its data in a way. It's also using satellite data and, being able to tag your phone when you move in and out of certain areas that have been geofenced. But it's a pretty interesting technology for sure. And let's just say it's not exactly real friendly. If you like your privacy. If you don't like your privacy, then I guess it doesn't matter. But anyway, I just thought that was pretty interesting as far as this article goes, and it does give you a little bit more background here than maybe some of the other articles talking about geofencing that we mentioned tonight. So have a look at that one, vaccineimpact.com. All right, let's see. GeoWatch for this week, Mr. Dane. Chemical cold is the name of this one. Winter weather warning. Winter weather warning as 15 inches of snow to hit this weekend. That's a Newsweek headline. From record warmth to chemical winter, what happened to autumn? Major risks to climate stability in the world economy. Another dire warning about the dangers of climate engineering has been issued from the climate science community. Florida airports start reporting banned weather modification aircraft. That's a USA Today headline. Musk's satellites are falling to Earth at an alarming rate. We mentioned that a little bit ago, didn't we? Soon to be as many as 5 per day. The manipulators of the Matrix have churned up a scapegoat to blame the catastrophic Palisades fire on to distract from the climate engineering elephant in the equation. Weather warfare and climate chaos are inseparable. What comes next? So, latest installment, Global Alert News, is below. Have a look at that. We will be putting out some new clips starting this week on GeoWatch on the Twitter/X account on there, of which I am a manager, and I will be posting some videos and clips once we have Mr. Dane's approval on some of them. But we're going to be doing that a little bit more often, a little more presence on Twitter and X and YouTube, on some other channels and stuff. So we'll see how it goes. But anyway, yes, I help Mr. Dane with the website, geoengineeringwatch.org. So make sure you're on the email list associated with that. You can sign up for free. You just click on this button right here. Email list, sign up. If you want to be on the list. If you don't, then that's fine too. But it's and we'll get into what Twitter accounts it is. I don't have that pulled up, but real GeoEng Watch, I know, is one of them, and then there's a couple others as well. So anyway, we'll get into that later. But yeah, he's kind of pulling out all the stops here because he's convinced that things are going south really, really fast. And if you look at some of these climate headlines, you can't really not draw that conclusion. There's so many crazy bad things going on with the environment, and we are not told about most of this stuff. I mean, there's articles about it, but you really have to do some deep research to find them all. And there's a bunch of stuff here just on this one page. This is the roundup of climate news for October 11th. So, for instance, scientists discovered something alarming seeping out from beneath the ocean around Antarctica. The Earth is getting darker. That's not good news. And that's not talking only about the global dimming program, of which the movie called The Dimming addresses. It's even more than that. There's other stuff going on that we just don't really hear much about. Subtropical storm Karen has formed over the far northern Atlantic. So how about that? Northern Atlantic. Scotland sees record-breaking temperatures in October. England sees second worst harvest on record. Spain hit by heavy flooding. You can see some pictures here. Wildfires destroy 80,000 hectares in Turkey. You know, just goes on and on. All kinds of craziness. Talking about Pakistan having successive climate disasters, more flooding, Portugal, and what else we have? Fires, flooding in Vietnam. So it just goes on and on here. Mexico, yeah, a lot of flooding in Mexico as well. And this one I thought I would mention just because it's King Charles and Prince William. History will remember who showed up, Prince William, to attend COP30. And this video was one that is on the Royals channel. And they're simply preparing for a joint appearance at COP30. And you can see William there with him. Charles and William made a rare joint appearance on Thursday evening at a reception marking the countdown to the COP30 Climate Summit in Belem, B-E-L-E-M, next week. Charles and William attended the pre-COP30 gathering at London's Natural History Museum, co-hosted by the UK government. Anyway, yeah, I know a few people that believe that it's William that will be the biblical Antichrist, but he doesn't have the visuals that are described in Revelation. He doesn't have that, the coat of arms that Charles has. His Prince of Wales coat of arms fits it perfectly as far as what's talked about in the book of Revelation. William does not have that. So there's a lot of interesting comparisons between the two men. But Charles is the guy, in my opinion. And I do have an idea that I'm going to be, when my voice is a little better, pursuing about a comparison between King Charles and a certain other Charles that we all know about. I don't want to give away too much yet, but let's just say there's some interesting comparisons in what may play out in the very near future. So we're going to make another video, probably be a Diamond Report video or a End Times Dates video, I'm not sure which, on that. So stay tuned for that. That's coming soon. I'm working on that, but it's sort of in the preliminary stages right now. But it is pretty interesting, some of the comparisons between those two guys, Charles and Charles. So if you don't know what I mean, that's okay. I'll explain it in the video. Asteroid threat revives ancient prophecies as NASA weighs nuclear option. So this is on Israel 365 News. Space agencies are developing a plan to use nuclear weapons against an asteroid that poses a threat to the moon, potentially creating disastrous, dangerous clouds that could threaten Earth's satellite infrastructure for years. Yeah, and remember, we just were saying that there's going to be, the plans are for 50,000 low Earth satellites, low Earth orbit satellites. So that's crazy. What I was thinking was that this might be related to 3I Atlas, but that isn't what they're talking about here. This is something else. Asteroid 2024 YR4 is what they're talking about. 4% probability of impacting the moon in December of 2032. So I think we've got some time. And that's if their calculations are correct. So I don't know that we're ever going to see this, but it is interesting that they're, thinking about potentially using nukes to blow it up, essentially. So, who knows? But that is NASA for you. Never a straight answer. Evangelicals unite in Israel, the largest global Christian gathering for Jerusalem's peace. It's all about the peace. This past weekend, believers from around the world united in one of the most significant moments of prayer in modern history, the 21st annual Day of Prayer for the Peace of Jerusalem. Annual gathering has become the largest global prayer movement for Israel, bringing together millions of Christians and more than 175 nations to stand in faith and solidarity with the Jewish people. So how about that? Season of convergence, a movement with global impact. The heart of the historic convergence stood the Day of Prayer at the Peace of Jerusalem, for the Peace of Jerusalem, rooted in the biblical command of Psalm 122:6. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. The gathering served not only as a spiritual call to intercession, but also as a bold public declaration of Christian solidarity with Israel. So, after this whole thing with Charlie Kirk, this seems to be a direction that they are really putting everything they can into, keeping the evangelicals with Israel. Because financially, they can't afford for too many evangelicals to get off the reservation, as we say, right? Anyway, so there's more on this article about those types of things. Israel 365. Anyway, I think that was the last article I had for you guys tonight. Oh, yeah, there's one more here. We have some of the, pictures of the, I don't know if this is all of them, but these are some of the hostages. They're coming home tomorrow morning, meaning Monday, Jerusalem time. I can't even describe in words how happy I am. We have waited 2 years for them. They are coming back from hell to their homeland, Israel, their safe haven, to be held once again by their loved ones. So these are, I don't know, I guess these are all of the living ones. I thought it was 20, but this is more than 20 people. We are waiting for you, it says. So this is a tweet. I guess, I don't know if it's an official Israeli government type of tweet, but I thought it was kind of interesting how it showed so many different photos here, different pictures of people who are hostages. And the question to me, though, is, okay, if the hostages do come home, if they're released and brought back into Israel, well, first of all, will it be all at once, or will it just be a few here and there and then more later? I don't know how they're going to do that. If it's going to be all at once, I would say that that's probably going to mean that Israel, as soon as they have them all, will probably do something really huge. I don't know what it would be. I mean, they've already pretty much flattened Gaza. I think I have... Let me see. Yeah. Let me play this. This is drone footage, you guys, of what Gaza looks like. It almost looks like we're underwater, but no. That's drone footage of what Gaza looks like now. So I'm not really sure what else they can do to Gaza that hasn't already been done. But I do think that they will do something else really huge once all the hostages are back. Because again, the Greater Israel Project is one of their main things that they're trying to move towards. So I don't know, but this is that's how bad it is. I mean, that's just a small portion of Gaza. I mean, you can see it's just a parking lot. So very sad, but I don't know. Yeah, the caption here says Israeli drone footage reveals the scale of destruction in Gaza. That's just a corner of it, so I don't really know if it looks like that 100% or like 75% that, and then there's still buildings in places. I don't know. They've refused the press access for the most part, and there's not really a good way to know exactly what it's like. Perhaps there's still some buildings left. I have no idea, but I do find it very interesting for sure. And also came across this. This is a post. Let me mute this. Look at this. This is apparently just happened earlier today in Egypt. It almost appears to be a magic type thing going on. I don't know if this is some sort of I don't know what this is exactly. But you can see the pyramids coming and going. They're there. You can see the shadows behind them. But they're just people holding their phones up in the crowd like they're worshiping. And you can see the outline of the pyramids here, but there's no music playing that you can hear, but I've got it muted. And it almost looks like some sort of weird pagan ritual or something with these big posts and the long lines. It looks like they would have their sacrifice here in the middle. You remember that scene in King Kong where they tie up tie up the young woman on between a couple poles with some ropes, and she's the sacrifice, and King Kong's going to come, eat her or whatever he's going to do. This is kind of what it looks like. It's got these two huge posts, like some giant's going to come through and take whoever's being sacrificed here. In this case, I think they're sacrificing a DJ, so maybe that wouldn't be so bad. I don't know. Based on the music he's playing, I definitely don't think that would be too bad. No, I'm just joking. But it's pretty wild how they have the lighting set up, because it instantly flashes on and you can see the pyramids, and then they turn it off and it looks like they disappear, but of course it's just all done with lighting. COVID was an IQ test. I think this person failed. Pretty silly. And then this is another one. You can see before and after, if you know what I mean. We have the I just got jabbied here, and now the result. Very sad. Very sad. So anyway, there's some interesting stuff here on my Diamond Report page on X. So feel free to join along in the fun if you don't mind. And yes, make sure you're subscribed on Subscribestar and Substack. This is Substack. The QR code in the upper corner up there is for Substack. If you scan it, it will take you directly to this page, diamonddisc.substack.com, where you can put your email address in, hit subscribe, and join the email newsletter list. And I won't spam you. I only send out, one email on Sunday letting you know about the Sunday night show, one email on Monday letting you know about the podcast version of the show from tonight, and then one email on Tuesday that has everything else, all of the links that I talk about in the live show, and then some other stuff as well. All kinds of fun odds and ends. And then Subscribestar as well. So feel free to join in there if you don't mind. I certainly would appreciate the help. I've got a few people that are helping me out and covering my cost, or at least some of my cost, for this show. So Subscribestar and Substack are the two ways to contribute to what I'm doing. And no pressure, as I always say, but if you want to help, that is the best way to do it. And then, of course, subscribing as well on the YouTube channels and the other channels would be super, super cool. So, yes, Diamond Disc on YouTube is back up and running, and hopefully some of you guys are on there tonight. So let's see how many folks are watching tonight. Yeah, we got a handful of people on Rumble. Everybody else is on YouTube tonight. So, hello and welcome. I'm glad you guys made it tonight, and I apologize for my crazy voice acting the way it did all night, but wasn't really cooperating. I knew it felt funny all day, and then I don't know. It's one of those things. I was kind of out in the cold on Friday night. We were at a last high school football game that my daughter plays in the pep band at the high school football games, and this was the last game on Friday, and it was kind of cold that night. I probably didn't have enough layers on, and I think that's what's going on with my throat. So hopefully that's all it is. It's just something that will be passing. But anyways, thank you guys for being here tonight. We'll go ahead and call it quits a little bit earlier just because my voice is wearing out, and I know you guys are probably tired too, like all of us. Anyway, yes, please join the YouTube channels if you're not already subscribed on there, because that really helps me. And again, totally free, easy way to do it if you want to help out what I'm doing. Rumble and BitChute and Brighteon as well. And then Miss Emily probably posted links, I don't know, in chat, but it is available on the chat. And if not, it should be available in the description box for the band group. The band group is the group of folks, some of which are in chat, some of which are not, and we can get on there and do all kinds of stuff. We can do prayer requests. We can do, articles and links for things that you guys are investigating and looking at. And I tend to post a few things in there as well myself. So everybody can post in the Diamond Report. So we just ask that you don't spam people. But yeah, it's kind of a free-for-all in a way. So anyway, thank you guys for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. The next live show will be a week from now. So it will be the 19th. October 19th coming up at 10 p.m. Central Time. So we'll sign off for tonight. Oh, yeah, Emily's posting the links. Yeah. band.us/@the-Diamond-Report is how you find it. So anyways, thank you guys for hanging in there with me tonight. I really appreciate that. And I guess we can watch one more video tonight. We've got several here in the queue. So we'll do that, and we'll call it a night for tonight, and we'll see you guys again next week. So blessings to you guys. Keep the Lord Jesus Christ front and center in your life. I certainly try to do that every single day. And keep your family close to you as well, because, again, we are in the end times. I fully believe that. I feel like we all probably don't really have as much time as we would like, but we need to make the most out of what we do have, because the Lord has given us time here on this earth to do things for Him and to be a beacon, to be a light, to be salt and light for Him. So blessings to you guys, and we'll see you again next week. Love you all, and we'll see you soon.